Hey, good evening, my friends. How are you? Welcome to another edition of Wednesday Night Live with me, Mike Avery. Here on many of my social media outlets, including YouTube, Facebook. Still working on a way to get it on Twitter. Just if I can get my account verified, maybe we can do it then. Hello, Joe. I look forward to seeing you at our Trinity dinner coming up here in just a few short, a week and a half now? We'll turn that music down a little bit. Music's good, but we don't need it that loud. Kirk, good evening. Hello. Mark, are you back in Michigan now? Or are you still out with Johnny Bowler? Johnny, did you recover from your birthday celebration yet? Cliff says, let's get the party started. Amen to that. Hello, John. I'm eagerly awaiting how your tax returns come out so you can go on the Ohio bow hunt with us. Ross, my day was wonderful, buddy. How was yours? Hello, Dina. Nice to have you along with us. Ted, always a pleasure. I enjoy seeing names on here that I don't recognize so far. Hello, Angie. How are you? How's Gus? Jerry checking in from Mail Guy. Captain Jim. Hey, buddy. I'll see you at the Trinity event as well. Paul. Nice to have you along with us. My name is Mike Avery. This is you're enjoying Arizona till the end of March. How's the golf game this winter, Mark? I'm so jealous there. So jealous there. I think we're going to jump in the truck with the clubs in the back and head south till we can find some warm weather. Although if I stick around Michigan, you miss Ross. He must be busy selling vehicles. He'll be on here tonight. Hey, Bernie, how you feeling? You made it home, okay. For those of you who don't know, Bernie, a regular viewer and listener, had a heart attack last weekend, but he's back with us tonight. Bernie, we appreciate that very much. Glad you're feeling a little bit better. Mike, good evening. Hello, Berg. How are you? Kelly? Adam, that was a beautiful. Oh, my gosh, Mark, you broke your wrist? No golf? You're going to be shooting a crossbow this year, aren't you? Adam, that was a beautiful walleye, that beautiful Yooper walleye that you sent me a picture, and we posted that here. I posted that the other day. Nice fish. And the fact that you released it got a lot of people's attention, too. So good for you. Good for you. Again, this is Wednesday Night Live. My name is Mike Avery. It is just about the middle of the month now. February is a short month, but we're in the middle of it. The weather's up and down. The weather is squirrely. It's supposed to be snowy tomorrow. Although I have seen robins come back. No skunks yet. No red-winged blackbirds yet. Burbot fishing. How cool is that? Hello. Howdy, Tony. How are you? Bear says, currently have a master angler bourbon on the ice. Burbot makes more sense. It does. It does. Got a special treat coming up tonight. This is something we've done before a couple of times, but we are going to do it every quarter this year now on Wednesday Night Live. Good evening, Tim. How are you? I know you'll have some questions for Amy. Billy saw a dead skunk on 53 in Bad Axe. Johnny, I'll see you the 4th. I'll be bringing you a bear hunt. I mean, you already have it. I mean, yeah, well, I want to see a bear on my bear hunt, Johnny. You know I'm just busting your chops, buddy. If you have listened to the radio show or the podcast, you know that I am a big supporter of MUCC, Michigan United Conservation Clubs. I'm a member of that group, and I've worked with them for the last several years. I think they do a very, very nice job in advocating for hunters and anglers and shooters and trappers and outdoors men and women here in Michigan. Like any group, all members are not going to agree with everything that group does. But as I look around, and there are a lot of great conservation and pro hunting and fishing groups in this state. As I look around, I can't see anybody that more closely aligns with what I believe in than the folks at MUCC. Good morning, Tim, or good evening, Tim. How are you? Robert checking in. Adam says it felt good to release that fish. So what we want to do, and I'll set the stage here. I am going to have some questions for Amy, but I'm going to bring her in here in a minute. She is going to be able to see your questions as well and respond. So if you have a question for Amy Trotter, Executive Director of MUCC, think about this. How many times do you get a chance to sit down and talk with somebody in a position of authority like Amy Trotter? This is your chance tonight. I'm going to bring her in now, talk to her for a couple of minutes, then open it up to your questions. So feel free to do that. Let me see if I can unmute you, Amy. Why does it not want me? There we go. Hey, Amy, how are you?
Good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. How are you tonight?
We're doing good.
How are things in Lansing? What have you been up to? I mean, other than the obvious things at your office at MUCC.
We have been busy. This is back to the legislature, getting back in the swing of things, meeting with new legislators. Now the budget is heating up, so lots of things going on in Lansing specifically. We've got bear regulations at the Natural Resources Commission. There's been reappointments to the commission again. So it's a time of excitement and kind of starting over again and back at it, and just really trying to get in there and roll up our sleeves and get some things done.
Jim Felgenauer says, "Best regards, Amy. I know you, Jim, very well. I know you know Amy. You know Jim very well. It's people like him that I take my hat off to, and people like you, Amy. People who are willing to get involved. That's what it takes these days, doesn't it?"
It does. You got to be in the arena. That's what Teddy Roosevelt said, right? You have to be in there. You have to use your voice, and that's one of the most important things that we have as hunters, anglers, trappers, is to make sure that our decision makers know who we are and what we're all about.
If you have a question, folks watching this right now for Amy Trotter, please chime in. I'm going to start out with a couple of questions, and folks, you can feel free. Again, this is your chance to reach out to Amy Trotter and get her input on things. Amy, right off the bat, Justin says the world is run by those who show up. Absolutely. All right. Jim asks a question. So, Amy, I'll throw this one out at you right away. And I don't know if you're going to know the answer to this or not. But now that COVID is over, will we ever see put and take pheasant hunting in Michigan?
That is why we created the pheasant stamp here in our state. So it is required for public lands in Lower Michigan and HAP lands, and it is funding pheasants on the ground on our public lands. Now it's starting off low, I would say. We're working on trying to expand it to more areas, but that's based on those pheasant stamp revenues. So right now, that's the only money we have to spend, and we definitely are going to expand in this 2023 season from where it's been before, but it's baby steps. So it is growing, but it's growing slowly.
Amy, you talk about funding. That everything, unfortunately, in today's world, and probably always, relies on funding. You've got to have money to make things happen. With the way the economy is, the way the state government is tightening down, concerns over that at all?
It's actually concerns about, really loss of revenue just from the overall aging of our hunting population. Fishing has stayed pretty stable in terms of our fishing license sales. However, the costs have all gone up. So we can't rely on a very, stable funding base and not keep up with inflation. So that's a bit of a concern in terms of just the pressures on the budget. Hi, Mom.
I wondered if you saw that. Jerry Prevey says, "Good evening, Captain Mike and Amy." Somebody says hello. James says, "Good evening, Mike and Amy as well." Amy, so let's talk about the consent decree. I tend to characterize it, my words, not yours, as the consent decree debacle. I feel like we as recreational anglers are getting the short end of the stick here.
Well, it certainly hasn't been done in the way that it always has been in the past. We wanted to see a strong negotiation where recreational and commercial tribal fishing could, coexist. And we believe it's worked pretty well for the last 20 years under the 2000 consent decree. We've had the zonal management, roughly 50-50 shared resource. And that was really the premise that we walked into these consent decree negotiations under. That's not what's in the current proposal, unfortunately. And we see a lot of holes in this proposal. We've made those objections widely known. The DNR, to their credit, fired back, I guess, with their frequently asked questions. And as I've mentioned before, they've gotten in trouble with those frequently asked questions. So we are going to, be releasing a lot of our responses very soon to that frequently asked questions that they sent out. You're really just showing where there's holes in their arguments. Gill nets are detrimental to our fish populations. The expansion of them is going to be problematic. And that's really where we're at, and that's why we need to continue to be at the table. But we need money. You just talked about money. We need money to stay at the table, and the Coalition to Protect Michigan's Resources has a GoFundMe that's been ongoing. But we need to raise probably about $50,000, really from now until at least this iteration of trading objections and filings comes to a close. So we really need to get after it.
If that money isn't raised then, and you can't effectively fight this, where does it leave us as recreational anglers?
We really have to hope, I guess, that the tribes don't use all of their allocations and that all of our worst fears aren't realized. So, that's not very comforting to me, but there are other paths of litigation when we do find harm to the resource that we can bring, but we don't want to have to wait for that to happen, because by the time we find that out, it might be too late.
Justin asked a good question. Why was the Coalition of Charter Captains, I'm thinking the Michigan Charter Boat Association, representing us, kept out of negotiations? First of all, were you, MUCC, the fishing group up north, Michigan Charter Boat Association, were you allowed to be in on these negotiations from the beginning?
From the beginning, we've been invited to the in-person negotiations, and to some extent during COVID online as well. Our lawyers were all involved. But it got to the point where, because we were vocally disagreeing with some of the positions that the department was taking, they would let us in. They might share with what they were doing, and then they would ask us to leave. And then they would go and make decisions. So we were pushed out of the room. I was asked to leave, and we were left in the hallways a lot of times. So we were invited to the party, but left in the hallway. So no, I can't say that we were always in the room, and they thought that we were talking about things too much. That was never actually adjudicated. We did not break our non-disclosure agreement. But they did not like to be challenged on some of the assumptions they were making.
Amy, I tried to get information out of you guys. You were very tight-lipped. You weren't talking too much at all. I see we've got a link up there right now. I think Nick is behind the scenes right now. He posted a link to the GoFundMe account right there, folks. If you want to help out this cause, and think about the tribes have a lot of money, right? So we as recreational anglers, we need to step up to the plate. Okay, let's talk about Camp Grayling. Does MUCC have a position on the proposed expansion of Camp Grayling?
We absolutely do. And we were one of the first conservation organizations to come out opposed to this proposed expansion of Camp Grayling. Actually, since 1989, we've been opposed to the expansion of Camp Grayling through our grassroots process. Our members have had concerns about this expansion. I think we're being heard. I've heard some positive conversations coming out. I do know that we are not just the only group in town. Certainly the anglers of the AuSable on the ground locally, and so many of the local governments up there, all the townships, many of the counties have now passed resolutions in opposition. So we do have a good show of force in this issue. And I've heard from the director that she had to cut off public comment because she had been getting so many emails just bogging down her email inbox. So
that's good, though,
I think we're going to hear something soon. Yes.
Is she an interim director, or she hasn't been appointed permanent, has she?
Correct. Yes. Interim acting director Shannon Lott is our current acting DNR director.
But that's not a permanent thing, at least as of this point.
That is our understanding. Okay. Correct. And okay. Dan Eichinger just went over to the other department, Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, to serve in that capacity until a permanent one is chosen for that.
Dan Eichinger, of course, was executive director of MUCC. Does that put you folks at MUCC in an interesting situation, or does it actually help you out because you got an in with the guy now?
Well, I think it was certainly something we had an open line of communication, and of course, on this consent decree is probably where some of that communication has fallen flat. So I'm really hoping he does some great things over at Eagle. In the meantime, we have a great relationship with our interim director Shannon Lott, and I look forward to getting some things done.
Captain Jim. Jim, I did not tell you to post this. I'm only showing it because it's kind of funny. Jim says, "What's the stance of MUCC on the number of lines for trolling anglers?" Um, he brings this up, Amy, because I was at a convention a couple of years ago. I pitched this idea. It didn't go through yet, but I found it interesting because the process at MUCC, this proves that you guys are truly a grassroots organization.
Yes. So at this point, we do not support the expansion beyond the 3 lines currently allowed. But feel free. It's an open conversation, and we certainly invite new members and old members to come back. And again, it is about information and data. So there are people that are convinced by good information. So bringing forward, examples of where it can be used or where it has been successfully used in other states is meaningful into the conversation.
I hear what you're saying. Okay, let me ask you about this relationship between DNR, NRC, and the state legislature. Who actually makes the decision on fish and game laws in Michigan?
Fish and game laws are clearly under the exclusive authority of the Natural Resources Commission. So how we take it, where we take it, all of those things, the method, manner of take, it's clearly under the Natural Resources Commission. Now, there are some things that are within the DNR's authority, either because it's been granted to them or it hasn't been specifically transferred from the legislature to the DNR. So for the example, baiting and feeding. So baiting is a manner of take. That is a hunting method. That's fully within the Natural Resources Commission. Feeding, however, had to be a delegated authority that actually was transferred from the legislature, and they gave the commission authority on that. Things like crop damage permits, however, those are in the DNR's hands. So your local biologists all the way up to Lansing have some hand in creating the guidelines on whether or not those crop damage out of season permits are issued, because that's not considered hunting. It's outside of the hunting season, and it's with methods that might not be allowed during hunting seasons.
Paul Schmidt comes in. I'm sorry to cover your face, Amy, but I want to be able to see this. Eastern UP here. Where are we at in the UP wolf discussions pertaining to control and management of wolves? Of course, we just had a recent population estimate. Amy, MUCC has a position on this.
So, wolves are stable. And of course, from our perspective, that means that they can be safely managed with no harm to the population when we're looking at it from an endangered species aspect. And we believe that they are no different than any other game species, and they should be managed. Absolutely. We did hear some promising words, well, depending on where you are in the argument, I guess, from Commissioner Tom Baird, who said that he really does want to have a plan for when they come off the federal endangered species list. However, he's really hoping he'll announce those ideas and roll that out in October, which is not necessarily satisfactory from a timeline perspective. But we haven't seen any great movement at the federal level in the court cases to get them delisted. And right now, that is the first thing that has to happen before we can actually have a meaningful conversation about management. But I want to be ready to have that conversation right away.
You're on the Wolf Advisory Committee, aren't you?
Yes, the Wolf Management Advisory Council. I spent 10 months on that. Painful.
I bet it was. Couple of questions here. James says, when can we shoot does in the Eastern UP again? I bring this up because, as an example, Amy doesn't know an answer to this. I don't believe. Amy is with MUCC. She's the executive director of MUCC. MUCC, in my opinion, is a watchdog group. Are you getting a real bad feedback, Amy? Delay? Are you okay?
No,
Okay.
I'm okay.
They are a watchdog group that oversees, keeps an eye on everything in Lansing. They do not make policy directly. They have input. So when you ask questions like when will baiting come back and when can we shoot does in the UP, Amy does not have, Amy, correct me if I'm wrong, Amy doesn't have a say in that, right?
That's correct. But I would say this is the year we are having that conversation. Typically, deer regulations have been done almost every year, but now we're trying to get back to a 3-year cycle. And 2023 is that 3-year cycle. So the Natural Resources Commission and the DNR are looking comprehensively at all of our deer regulations and throwing spaghetti at the wall. So I think there will be some changes proposed. I don't know whether the commissioners, though, who have the ultimate vote, will adopt any of those changes proposed or might come up with their own. So certainly that's, again, the power of the voice. You have to get in touch with those natural resources commissioners. You have to go to those meetings and you have to share your thoughts on that.
Amy, our good friend Davina says, do you have a date for spring cleanup at camp yet?
I believe it's going to be in early May, but I don't have the date off the top of my head.
All right, Davina, stand by. We will get that information to you. All right, speaking of DNR and DNR and NRC, bears. I love to bear hunt. If I could get a bear tag in Michigan every year, I would do it. So I'm a little frustrated to hear that we might knock back the number of bear tags. Although I understand, Amy, there is a sound biological reason for that. So of course I will accept that. Tell me what's going on there.
Yeah, and this is really just a result of kind of how we determine the bear tags overall. Where we start is the biologist recommending a target harvest. So they have an idea of how many bears we should be killing in Michigan in order to keep us with our bear management goals, which really is we're trying to get a stabilized population. You know, we're not trying to grow it extremely. We're not trying to shrink it extremely. We're really trying to stabilize it. But we've been getting better at hunting bears in our state. And why that is, I'm not sure, but we have been getting better and better over the course of time. And, you know, maybe we've got better baits and maybe we've got better dogs and, you know, everybody's just getting smarter than Yogi, but we are getting better. And that has actually resulted in sort of an inadvertent decrease in tags because, again, we're trying to get to that target harvest. And when you put in the new numbers of hunter success, you actually get fewer tags to reach that target harvest. And so it's not across the board. It is based on unit by unit that they're looking at that. So there are a couple units that are increasing or no change, and then there's others that are decreasing. So unfortunately, my 9 points also are less meaningful now than they will be than they have been.
To answer Davina's question, May 5th is the spring cleanup at the Michigan Outdoors Youth Camp. Thank you. I think Nick is posting that. Speaking of sound scientific wildlife management, and Justin, we'll come back to your question in just a minute. Amy, are you confident at this point that we are dealing with the premise of sound scientific wildlife management as opposed to social science in our hunting and fishing decisions?
I think, you know, at least it's been demonstrated that our Natural Resources Commission digs in on an issue. And they, you know, not everybody always agrees with the source of the information they're using for, because sometimes it's not the DNR's information and they are using other sources of information. But I do think that they are committed to demonstrating their rationale as to why we are doing things. And you can't 100% take the social side of it out because you have to understand that hunters are or anglers, you know, hunters are ultimately pulling the trigger. So if they're not going to pull the trigger with a given regulation, that's going to have an impact on the population inadvertently. So they can make regulations. Ultimately, hunters and anglers and trappers have to abide by them. But I do think our commissioners are committed to science, and they can be convinced by science, whether it's from the DNR or from outside entities.
Exactly. And that's why we have to stay involved, because I know that the opposition, the antis, do not hesitate to lobby very hard at those meetings, right?
I can honestly say that the anti-hunting groups have outnumbered MUCC and our members in the room. You know, thankfully, we had a great presentation though just this month from the Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association, and it was balanced. It was well done. Mark Earl stuck his hand in a trap just to show people that it's not cruel and inhumane. So we're doing what we can, but we need to do more of that even.
Justin wants to go back to the consent decree, and I don't blame him. The question is, was there or is there a scientific basis given for the use of gill nets? He's concerned for East and West Grand Traverse Bay.
Scientific, no. Economic, maybe. So basically, they've said all along that that's not scientific.
That goes against what you just said.
Exactly. Well, and again, this isn't the Natural Resource Commission decision. But what we heard from the DNR's tribal coordinator is that gill nets are cheaper and easier to use, and there's less fish, and we need to make it easier. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying what I've heard. That is, runs very counter to scientific management from our perspective. We think we should be putting the resource first. And gill nets are indiscriminate, and they will harm non-target species and potentially allow them to go over their limits more quickly, leaving less for the sportsman when it's our turn in the waters.
I find it very interesting that there is something in northern Lake Huron called a lake trout refuge. And the proposal is to open up the lake trout refuge to gill netting. If it's a refuge, why would you let gill nets in there? There's so many things about this just seem to fly in the face of common sense.
That is absolutely accurate. So, another thing that's been a concern of ours is that we're all basing a lot of our assumptions on a mortality rate that we've had defined in the consent decree, that we're not trying to exceed the various mortality rate for these given bodies of water. There is no such proposal for that in this new consent decree. It's still got to go through a whole nother process. So we don't even know what we're arguing about, how many fish it's okay to kill or not. It's not there.
Just to clarify, Jeremy says the NRC is appointed, right? They're an appointed group.
It is an appointed body. It is required to be bipartisan, no more than 4 members of any one party. And right now we have 4 independents and 2 Democrats, I believe, and 1 Republican. So
Tim Bin says, does MUCC have a position on $1 rule?
We have not taken a position on $1 rule. Our membership likes the combo tag, but we did support the flexibility on the combo tag of allowing you to use one of those tags for a doe.
How about a sandhill crane season in Michigan?
Oh, I heard someone in the comments say they've been hearing them, and I heard them too in my backyard just this week. It's still on our list of things to do. It is, again, a difficult decision. And when we were talking about wolves, when wolves went back on the list, I said, well, let's just talk about sandhill cranes now and get it over with. But it is the commission that has to name them a game species. We do believe that we have support among commissioners, but it also requires, kind of going through this federal process of getting basically permission. But we do believe we have a huntable population here in the state. And we do think we can, and we know we can manage them scientifically. We do it with elk, and there's way fewer elk in Michigan than there are sandhills.
Good point. I think it's important to point out that MUCC, Michigan United Conservation Clubs, your group, Amy, this is not some group of 200 staff and lobbyists and biologists in Lansing. You're a skeleton crew that gets an awful lot done. I've been very impressed when I see behind the scenes what you guys are all about.
Yes, our policy team is about 1.5 people, and we really do have. I mean, we have a magazine editor, magazine staff of 1, and and they're both on here tonight with me. So yeah, we have a crew of 10, but that includes our camp director, our membership, our habitat coordinators, everybody. We do rely on interns, but what we do in the power that we have is in our membership. We have 40,000 members and 200 affiliates, and that's where we derive our strength and where we, can throw some weight around in Lansing.
And I want to follow up on that, but just a reminder for folks watching, if you want to get a question for Amy, you better do it soon because I'm going to let her get on with her evening. Amy, I want to follow up on this concept of membership. I always say that we as outdoorsmen and women, we're not by nature joiners. We're more of loners. We don't like to get involved. We don't want to be involved in politics. We don't want to join groups. We don't want to contribute to causes. If we keep up with that mindset these days, though, I've come to the conclusion, I've come to admit to myself that I think our way of life is in jeopardy. Any thoughts on that?
I absolutely agree. Our membership is $35, which can be a burden for some. And it's the same price, though, as Pheasants Forever and Ducks Unlimited and National Deer Association and all of those other groups. We think you're getting a bargain at that price because we cover all of the species, we cover all of the lakes, we cover all of the issues that are in front of us. So especially if you are a hunter and an angler, which I know a lot of people are, we're the best bang for your buck. So it is, we started off the top with, you have to be in the arena, in order to make your voice known. And nobody's ever going to agree with 100% of the issues that any organization takes. So nobody's perfect, and we understand that. So join multiple groups if that's how you feel. But we do know that we are a good bargain for what we can get done, and when we all work together, especially.
Johnny Bowler, the bear whisperer, who is probably responsible for Michigan bear hunters being more successful, except in my hunt, Johnny. He says, how do you join? That's a good question, Amy. How do you join?
You can join right on our website, mucc.org, and click the join button. While you're there, you can choose 1 year, 2 years. There's senior life members, life members. We also have a Tracks magazine for kids. So certainly encourage you to join online. You can also get our magazine on the newsstands if you want to try it before you buy it. That's on newsstands across the state.
And if somebody wants to save 25% on signing up to become an MUCC member first time around, use the promo code Mike. Question, Amy, and I don't mean to ambush you. I don't know what this means. Are you ever going to question the chemtrail problem? I don't know what that is. Are you familiar with that? Can you help me out?
That's not one that we've tackled yet. So, I think MUCC for decades was able to do land, air, water, pollution, waste, you name it. But again, we have scaled down our staff and thus have really tried to hone in on our niche issues, which is, those affecting fish and wildlife habitat and conservation. But this is one a little bit out of our wheelhouse.
I got you. You can't do everything. You can't be everything to everybody. Let's see. Did you hear senior member? Johnny, you're only 50. You're not senior yet. Knock it off. Yeah. Amy, anything else you want to cover before we let you go for tonight?
Oh goodness, there's probably so much, but I'm certainly happy to talk about a dozen other things. I saw in the comments that are we concerned about PFAS in fish? We are absolutely concerned about PFAS in fish, not even because of where it came from or how to stop it or any of those things, but if there's consumption advisories on our fish and wildlife, we should be concerned. And so that is an issue that we not only have to tackle here in our state, but even at the national level. So it's an issue that MUCC is a member of National Wildlife Federation. We brought it up to that level as well and made it a priority of the national groups too, to get some real money infused to help us understand what is the impact of PFAS, how do we get rid of it, and then we'll be working towards supporting turning off the faucet as well.
Amy, you picked up at least one new member tonight.
Thank you, James.
James joined. There we go. All right, Amy. I'm going to let you. Let's see. Okay, one last question. Wondering what MUCC stance is on deforestation of public lands to create grouse, turkey, and deer habitat. This has got a loaded question, resulting in the destruction of hollow trees occupied by birds, mammals, and pollinators. That's a pretty broad question, Amy. Can you see anything there that you want to respond to?
Well, really for me, it's about education. So I've been involved in the forestry discussions a lot. our state of Michigan is actually dual certified in sustainability for our public lands and how we manage our forests. We have 2 different outside auditors looking at our forest practices on our state lands and saying that they are good quality forest practices. So deforestation, I would call it a clear cut, and those clear cuts grow up to create aspen, which are good for all those early successional species. There are still places in our forest with old growth too, and it's really on rotation. We cannot have a tree museum in our state. It is important to support active forest management. And I believe that our state is doing a pretty good job at doing that. And it's not just boards and cords, it's not deforestation. It really is about managing for the long term.
Amy, you're picking up several new members tonight. Good for you. Congrats.
Thank you.
All right, Amy, before I let you go here again, I just want to let you know that I appreciate you being with me tonight. I appreciate everything you and the staff are doing in Lansing. I would encourage people to contribute to the GoFundMe account to fight the consent decree, to pay for the fight to the consent decree. And also, we are going to have you on in about 3 months. We'll have you on in the second quarter. We'll have you on the third quarter and again in the fourth quarter, Amy. So I will look forward to that. And you know that you are welcome on the Outdoor Magazine radio show anytime.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate all your listeners asking such great questions. Thank you.
All right, Amy, have a good night. We'll talk to you again soon. That's Amy Trotter, Executive Director of MUCC. MUCC.org is the website, MUCC.org. Again, if you're signing up to become a member for the first time, use the promo code Mike and save 25%. So what's 25% of 35? I mean, you're saving a couple bucks. But it's the thought that counts, right? I always enjoy talking to Amy. I think she is a very interesting person. I've known her for a long time, worked with her for a long time, back when she was working more on the policy side of MUCC as opposed to the leadership side of MUCC. Okay, so what else is on my list here tonight? Where you are, if you're listening in Michigan right now, if you're watching in Michigan, is it still warm? Or are you starting to get a little snow? We're supposed to get snow tomorrow, something like 3 to 6 inches. To be honest, I will believe it when I see it. Mike is on his way back to Michigan. Got to get back here by the 4th. I saw that, Jeff. I saw something online today that Kevin Van Dam, this will be his last year of professional fishing. John has a good point. Don't use the code. Don't use the code. I mean, what... I agree, John. Don't use the code. I'm not getting any kickback. I mean, I wouldn't take it if I would. Don't use the code. Just pay the money and it's going to cost. Here we go. Ryan says temps dropping fast in St. Joe. Kathy said it's 27 in Sheboygan, 37 in Roscommon, 39 in Gladwin, 40 in Gladwin, 40 mile. Where'd we go? 40 mile an hour winds, 4 to 6 inches of snow coming in tonight in Houghton Lake. Scott Hand says, get the AQ ready, big guy, the AQ Angler Quest. We'll be fishing the Bay early this year. Crawlers and bottom bouncers early in April. Well, I hope to be out there. Early. My boat's basically done. Scott Hand, let me switch gears here a little bit. Scott Hand, good friend of mine, great guy, one of the guys behind the Walleye for Warriors event on Saginaw Bay, by the way. He has donated a youth hunt at his Montcalm County farm on the Saturday and Sunday of Youth Hunt Weekend to our Trinity Monitor Wild Game Dinner. And that, Scott, I appreciate your generosity. That's wonderful. That's just one of many, many great things we have. Half-day charter with Paul Schlafly on Lake Michigan. Michigan brand meats for a year. Whitetail shoulder mount. Saginaw Bay walleye fishing trip with Captain Jeff Godey. An Avery River cruise on the Angler Quest with me and my wife, Denise. A Michigan bear or deer hunt with Johnny Bowler. Guns. An Ohio deer hunt with Bill Piles of Ohio Bow Hunting Outfitters. A combine ride with one of our members out on the think that'd be cool. An African safari, courtesy of our friend Craig Plowman. A Michigan bear hunt with Gary Morgan of Wild Game Dynasty. A wagon of cheer filled with booze and an Avery fishing trip on Saginaw Bay. That's our live auction items. But we're going to have a bunch of online auction items as well that you will be able to be involved in. Rob says he's not using the code. Good. Let's make a pact. I will not mention the discount code anymore because $35 is a steal. MUCC can put that money to good use. And why try to screw them out of a few bucks, right? Well, thank you, Randall. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll look forward to seeing that picture of that burbot. 85 tomorrow in Florida. Yeah, thanks, Marty. Thanks for. Bear says we're on the ice just east of Marquette. With 70 in Cleveland, yeah. 46 feels like 40 at Metro. Yeah, the weather's, but not for long, right? It's not going to be bad for long. What else is on my list? Here's a question. I had some robins in the backyard the other day, and I realized that not all robins don't. There we go. Craig says, don't use the code, but tell them Avery sent you. I realized that not all robins head south, but I hadn't seen any robins around our place since the fall. So when a flock of robins flew in the other day, I thought it was a pretty cool deal. But here's my question. Why is the robin the Michigan state bird? Why do we honor a critter that abandons us for the most part in the wintertime? Yeah, I'll be going down to Outdoor Ram. I don't know when yet. Why? Why not have it be a chickadee or something like that? They're here year round. Turkey season coming up. Deer, have you seen? Let me ask you this: as you're driving around the back roads of Michigan, and I know you're looking, right? You're looking for deer and you're looking for turkeys. Have you had a situation lately where you have seen just one deer? Probably not. They're all herded up now. I swear, when you see a deer in a field right now, it's every deer in that section. Why don't we ask Amy and get her on board with a new state bird? Davina, I'll tell you why I would not push for that is there are so many real serious issues out there that MUCC is working on. I wouldn't want them to waste their time on an issue like this. I bring it up somewhat in jest. The GoFundMe. Anybody from MUCC still on here tonight? Would you please post the GoFundMe link again? If you're still with us, please post the GoFundMe link again. And Randy, who asked the question? Was it Davina? No. Barry, if they don't post that, scroll up the comments because it was posted earlier. Hey, Chad, everything's doing well here. I hope everything's good there. I'm surprised nobody, there we go, Justin. I'm surprised nobody brought up this question right here about gun control. I think people are a little hinky to talk about it right now with the MSU situation. Thank you, Justin. Here's the link for the GoFundMe. If you want to contribute to help pay, goldfinch should be a good one. They're a beautiful bird. Contribute to help pay for the legal battle to try to minimize recreational anglers from getting screwed as bad as possible because that's the way this thing is going. Amy can't say that. Amy probably wouldn't say that. I can say it, and I will say it. I'm very disappointed on how this has turned out. I'm very disappointed in the state, whether it be the Attorney General's office or the DNR or whoever, the way that they have basically turned their back on Michigan sport anglers. I mean, think about this. Part of the proposal is to open up a lake trout refuge in northern Lake Huron. What is a refuge? It's an area to protect whatever critters being talked about. There it is right there. There's the GoFundMe. So to open up a refuge to gill netting, which is an indiscriminate way of harvesting fish. And then to say that in their FAQs that gill nets are actually effective discriminating tools of harvest. It's kind of a joke. No. As much as I do not like our current governor, and I can't stress strongly enough how much I dislike our current governor, just fix the damn roads, governor. Don't worry about anything else. That is not something I'm interested in, Joe. I appreciate you saying that. I've heard that before, but no. 2023, why can't we have the same regulations for everyone? Why do certain people get special privileges? Because certain people are in groups that do. Yeah, I heard Justin. Well, you have to say that, Justin, because she's your boss. Where can we find the auction to help? I think the auction part of it, Barry, is over. The auction, they were auctioning off some salmon fishing trips on Lake Michigan. Go to Amy's link here, the GoFundMe account. I did that. I actually did that. I clicked on that link. I went to that link and I made a donation. And once I found out how much it was actually costing, I haven't done this yet, I need to go back and contribute more. Jeff just rubbing it in, checking in from the Florida Keys. Jeff, you need to just move down there. You need to retire and move down there. I know you've never thought of that before, right? Hey, sis-in-law, I know you just need to move down there. Okay, what else? Okay, our Trinity Monitor Wild Game Dinner and Auction is coming up Saturday, March 4th. I just found out we had something like 4 tickets returned. People bought 4 tickets and found out they could not make it. So you did miss Amy, but you can go back and watch a replay of the conversation. So we've got 4 tickets. It is a joke, Chad. It is. Honestly, it's a joke. If it wasn't so darn serious, it would be a joke. So we have 4 tickets available for the Trinity dinner, but they won't be there long. Also, I found out we have a couple of openings for our Ohio bow hunt. I thought that was sold out, but people who were going to commit had scheduling conflicts there. So I think we got something like 2 openings to hunt with Bill Piles of Ohio Bow Hunting Outfitters, October 16th through the 20th. You might say, well, that's not a good time to be down there. That's not the rut. Well, it's not the rut, but any time to hunt Central Ohio in Knox, Licking, and Coshocton counties is a good time to go, especially at this price, $2,500. Bill normally charges $3,200 for his hunts. He's a buddy of mine. He's given my buddies a break, $2,500, $1,250 now, due on deposit, and $1,250 when you show up. Fully guided hunt, free range hunt. Fully guided does not mean he sits in the tree stand with you. Lodging provided, meals provided. A 5-day hunt for $2,500. If you want to get involved, and now is the time to lock this in because we're starting to run out of time. Send me an email to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That's Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Thank you, Amy. I just saw, Amy, what you sent me at 7:42, but you've since posted it publicly. Thank you. All right, my friends. My name is Mike Avery. My website is MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address is Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Do not hesitate to reach out to me. Send me emails with your comments, your criticisms, your suggestions, questions for the Ask Avery segment. Before I let you go, let me let you know who's coming up on the Outdoor Magazine radio show this week. Almost forgot that. We kick off with Kyle Green of the Greenway Outdoors. This kid he's on fire. He has a Michigan-based outdoor hunting and fishing show. It's going to be on the History Channel. You know what a big deal that is to get a show on the History Channel? Then Ed Roy of the Michigan Wildlife Council talks about their Here for Generations campaign. In hour number 2, we're talking predator hunting with Randy Booty. Tyler Zarnopoulos of the DNR talks about how they're using their social media. This week's Ask Avery question I will come back to in a minute. And in our 3rd hour, we're talking with Chris Durson of Rapid River Knives, RapidRiverKnifeWorks.us, the company that makes this knife right here. Of course, we wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner. This week's Ask Avery question, real quick before I let you go, because I think this is very interesting how this was answered. Jack Buys sent me an email to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. He says, hey, I'm in my early 60s and I really want to get either an elk permit or a pure Michigan hunt. I've been applying for years. Ain't that the truth? I would propose adding points for any hunter older than 60 years to give them a better chance of winning a permit. He was able to go with his brother a few years ago. Got a nice 5x5. And there was a hunter there who was in his 80s. He had to wait till he was in his 80s to get a tag, and he could barely get around. He said, giving bonus points to a hunter when they become a senior citizen would really help to get them out there while they can still enjoy. He said, can you ask this question to the DNR? The pain is real. I've seen this firsthand when I used to MC the Michigan elk hunt orientation class. every time there was somebody in that audience who applied for 1 year, their first time, and they got a tag and they got a bull tag. Every year that happens. Yet you've got people in their 60s and 70s who've been applying for 30 years. So it's a great question. Can you give a senior hunter some kind of an advantage to help them get a hunt while they can still get out there and enjoy it? Lisa Jackson from the DNR joined me on the air, and I like Lisa. I have a lot of respect for her. I asked her that question, and I actually I'm thinking about having her back on to follow up on it because there we go, Amy. There's Amy. Thank you for support. MUCC memberships make a great gift as well. She said we can't do that. We can't give anybody an unfair advantage because elk belong to the people of the state of Michigan, and we can't give people an unfair advantage. And I'm thinking, well, that doesn't make any sense. We have weighted lottery systems. So I think I want to get her back on to explore that a little bit more. I don't want to say I let her off the hook, but her answer took me by surprise, and I didn't really know how to follow it. Dave, you're 64. You are an old man. You know why I can say that? Because I'm 64. Chad Bailey from Bear Archery, among others, says, Chris at Rapid River builds the nicest knife you've ever had. Made in Michigan. Store and showroom is beautiful. It is. You need to go, if you haven't been, to the Rapid River showroom on US 2, just east of Rapid River. You feel it too, eh, Dave? All right, my friends, I think I have bloviated long enough, although much of the time tonight was taken up by somebody much more eloquent. It's not a dumb question, Jeff, but I don't remember the latest numbers. It's usually about 800 to 1,000 animals, if I remember right. Gary Morgan, Wild Game Dynasty. Gary, thank you for your donation to our Trinity Monitor dinner. DNR has a system that allows them to appoint several tags to a group that ends up selecting handicappers, etc. If I'm wrong, then my last few elk clients explained their situation inaccurately. Yeah, I don't think Lisa's answer was a good one, and I think I need to follow up. Next week, hold on a second. It's not next week already. No, it's 2 weeks, Ed. It's 2 weeks. You freaked me out there for a minute, though. All right, my friends, have a good night. I appreciate you joining me. Again, a big thank you to Amy Trotter of MUCC, Executive Director. Honestly, she's a great person. She's doing a great job. I have much respect for the entire staff at MUCC. The website, mucc.org, mucc.org. Don't use the promo code Mike. Don't use the promo code Mike. So you save 25% on $35. Don't use the promo code. Give that few extra bucks to MUCC and let them do with it what they do. In fact, why not throw in and kick in a few extra bucks anyway? MUCC.org, my website, Mike Avery Outdoor. Oh, what do we got to do? What do we got to do? I can't go without this. Almost made a major mistake. That's better. You know what happens now, don't you? I know you do. This is what happens. This crystal light goes upstairs and it gets a generous splash of Maker's Mark. That's my reward. Hey, Matt, how are you? That's my reward for doing 2 live streams, a 3-hour radio show, and a podcast. All right, my friends, have a good night. Thanks for joining me on this edition of Wednesday Night Live.